Chapter 21-25. He is no longer the same as before. Crash. Chains flew across the sky, and Zhang Yi's divine chains bound the six figures tightly, lining them up in a row in midair. The six lizard men of the Wulwan Empire had their armor completely stripped off, wearing only clothes to cover their private parts, and their hands were handcuffed behind their backs with electronic handcuffs. These six people were the six silver-armored generals who were defeated by Zhang Yi's team and then captured. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry to kill them, initially in order to obtain intelligence about the Wulwan Empire. Later, when they were almost useless, Zhang Yi simply destroyed them, drained the spiritual power from their bodies, and turned them into complete living dead. The purpose of not killing them is very simple. It is to use them as sacrifices when the war starts. Six figures lined up in front of him, hanging on with only their last breath, and it was Zhang Yi who asked Zhou Qi to do it. Now they are so weak and have lost almost all their strength that even a child can defeat them. The silver-armored general of the Wulwan Empire was in such a miserable state that it was horrible to watch. Seeing these lizard men, the senior officials of the six districts showed surprise in their eyes. Who are these people? They seem to be lizard men from the Wulwan Empire, but what are their identities? Meng Yuanjun looked confused. Ho Tu thought of Zhang Yi's earlier mention of being ambushed by Pekong and his men, and said, I think these are high-ranking officials of the Wulwan Empire, probably the silver-armored generals. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth Zhang Yi's effort to bring them here for display. This is an insult, a blatant slap in the face of the Wulwan Empire. Shang Dawen frowned and said with some concern, Isn't he being too ostentatious? If he arouses the wrath of the Wulwan Empire, something bad might happen. Meng Yuanjun touched his chin and suddenly smiled. It's hard to say. Hunan didn't do anything wrong. If we keep enduring, it will only arouse suspicion from the other party. It's normal to respond appropriately. Shang Dawen sighed and said, Those are six silver-armored generals. The origin power of these people, TSK. Shang Dawen was very envious. If the original power of these people could be given to him, he would definitely be able to be promoted to the level of bishop within 2 years at most after absorbing it. However, in addition to absorbing these original powers himself, Zhang either gave them to the people around him. It is understandable that there are so many powerful Epsilon-level mutants in Zhang Yi's team now. Wealth and honor are sought in danger. Shang Dawen was very excited. He looked at Ho Tu and Meng Yuanjun and secretly made up his mind. That is, this time when the war breaks out, he also wants to participate in it and gain a future. Zhang Yi displayed those silver-armored generals above the fog valley, and the situation here had been captured by the Wulwan Empire. Many high-ranking generals and royal family members saw this scene clearly. Suddenly, many people were furious, their eyes turning red with anger. Especially the family members of these silver-armored generals, they were eager to rush to the surface and fight Zhang Yi to the death. Father! Damn surface bugs, let my father go. Altos, please don't be in any trouble. Their families were crying bitterly, hating the hateful surface humans in their hearts. But no one felt the slightest bit of grief when the Wulwan Empire used a tsunami to kill hundreds of thousands of Huaxi people. Zhang Yi looked down at the foggy valley coldly. He knew that the people of the Wulwan Empire could see everything. So he simply raised his hand, and chains instantly pierced through the knees of all the silver-armored generals. Puff, puff, puff. Blood splattered everywhere, and their knees weakened immediately. Zhang Yi adjusted their postures so that they were kneeling and made them kneel in a row. Lizards of the Wulwan Empire, this is what happens to you for offending the Huaxi kingdom, repeatedly attempting to invade us, and murdering me. Zhang Yi had gouged out the eyes and cut out the tongues of those silver-armored generals because he was worried that they would reveal information that would be detrimental to Zhang Yi at this time. But their hearing was still there, and they knew that they were above the foggy valley, being watched by the entire tribe, and that their families had seen their miserable situation, so they suddenly became excited and struggled one by one. Zhang Yi looked at their struggles, a smile of satisfaction and revenge appearing on his face. Are you in pain? Are you sad? Are you feeling hopeless about dying in front of your family? But when you killed the people of our country like they were bugs, ruthlessly wiping out a large number of them, you were all so excited. Boom! A huge sound of breaking through the air was heard. It was the sonic boom caused by Zheng Lu riding the deep valley elevator straight into the sky. Stop! He roared in human language. But Zhang Yi was just waiting for him to appear. You killed my people, and now I'm going to make you pay the price. Zhang Yi raised his hand, and a magic knife appeared in his hand, and he was about to chop off the heads of the 6 people. Boom! A huge black shadow rose into the sky, and the gatekeeper of the underworld rose into the air like a demon god. The huge figure was like a giant black eagle, staring at Zhang Yi with strong murderous eyes. When he saw these 6 people, he naturally recognized that they were the subordinates who followed his son Pokong to intercept and kill Zhang Yi. So, his son Pokong was killed by this inconspicuous human being in front of him. As soon as Pokong appeared, he pounced toward Zhang Yi. The black chain covered the sky and the sun, and it shot in front of Zhang Yi in an instant despite being a long distance away. Second hand of time. Zhang Yi had long seen through all his moves. In the past, he always thought that the ability of the gatekeeper of the underworld was space-related. However, the information he obtained from these 6 people made him realize that the other party's ability was not as good as expected. The chains of the gatekeeper of the underworld possess the power of causality, soul link. Once a person is bound by the chains, they will quickly lose their own abilities. And those who have been marked will be hit by the chain of cause and effect no matter where they hide. Zhang Yi has no intention of confronting the gatekeeper of the underworld head-on. The moment the other party appeared, he directly opened the dimensional door. Space travel. The distance has now reached 5 kilometers. He flashed in the air repeatedly. The gatekeeper of the underworld was indeed fast, but his first attack missed. By the time he came to his senses, Zhang Yi had already run a very long distance. Zhang Yi was looking down at him from the sky. I'm warning you, don't mess with us again. Otherwise, even if I can't beat you, I will kill all your subordinates. These guys are a warning to you. Remember that. Chapter 21-26 Kill the enemy and destroy his heart. Zhang Yi suddenly waved the chains in his hand, and the 6 people who were tied to the chains were actually spinning around as if they were throwing stones. Then Zhang Yi suddenly exerted force and threw these people towards the gatekeeper of the underworld. The gatekeeper of the underworld was shocked after his first attack missed. After not seeing each other for half a year, the human in that space-time system has grown tremendously again. The speed of space movement is so fast that he can't even catch up. Out of range, his chain could not lock onto Zhang Yi, making it difficult to hit him. Seeing Zhang Yi throwing the 6 people towards him, the gatekeeper of the underworld immediately realized that there must be something wrong with these people. He wanted to dodge, but the next moment, he suddenly saw Zhang Yi take out another thing from the alien space. The moment this thing appeared, the blood in the gatekeeper of the underworld turned cold, and his brain went blank. Because what Zhang Yi took out was Pokong's corpse. Then, Zhang Yi threw the corpse into the air towards the gatekeeper of the underworld. Even though the distance was great, he threw it with the power of the demon armor, causing the corpse to fly straight towards the gatekeeper of the underworld like a cannonball. Zhang Yi first used the bodies of 6 silver-armored generals to attract the attention of the gatekeeper of the underworld. When Pokong's corpse was thrown out, the gatekeeper of the underworld was in a state of shock. The corpse falling from the sky, combined with gravity, quickly became incredibly fast, and even flames began to burn on its surface. Even though the gatekeeper of the underworld knew that there was something wrong with the corpse, as a father who had just experienced the pain of losing his son, he could not tolerate his son's body falling into the sea like this. Because of this height and speed, it will inevitably be shattered the moment it falls into the sea. He quickly soared into the sky and reached out to catch the body flying through the air at high speed. However, the moment he got the corpse, he realized something was wrong. Although it looks exactly the same as Pokong, the touch is clearly not flesh and blood. What a deep love between father and son. A sneer appeared on Zhang Yi's lips. Pokong had been blown into pieces by him a long time ago, so where was his body? But he knew that Pokong was Zheng Lu's most beloved son, so he specially asked Lu Karen to make such a thing. What's in here? Of course, it's the death of love. Burst. Zhang Yi let out a low shout, and Pokong's belly suddenly burst into a dazzling white light, including the 6 silver-armored generals, whose chests also burst into dazzling light through their bellies. That's right, the powerful god of love-death was also stuffed into their stomachs. The lizard man was tall, and his stomach was quite spacious, enough for him to stuff a large amount of the god of death of love into it. Then Zhou Qir used her ability as a doctor to sew them up, so that no sign of it could be seen from the outside. That's why Zhang Yi blinded their eyes and cut off their tongues to prevent them from leaking this important information. At this moment, Zheng Lu was holding a death of love in his arms, and there were 6 others around him, and they all exploded at the same time. After doing all this, Zhang Yi did not delay at all, and continued to soar into the air to widen the distance between himself and Zheng Lu. In the space below, a huge mushroom cloud suddenly rose up, accompanied by a strong shock wave that could be seen with the naked eye. It swept in all directions, less than 1,000 meters above the sea. It was as if a stone was thrown into a basin of water, causing the sea water to explode, and the roar was so loud that it almost broke one's eardrums. At the very center of the explosion, the energy level had reached an extremely terrifying level. Zhang Yi wished so much that this attack could kill the Gatekeeper of the underworld, but when he thought that the other party was a top-level strongman at the level of the White Knight, he could only temporarily restrain this unrealistic idea. But even so, the death god of love in his arms and the joint explosion of 6 death gods of love at close range were enough to give him a hard time. Zhang Yi dodged several times to avoid the shockwave. From a distance, he watched the huge mushroom cloud rolling up to a height of 10,000 meters and also saw the huge tsunami rumbling across the Star Island fog valley. This small island country was washed away by such a terrifying tsunami. The large amount of seawater that rushed in actually diluted a lot of the thick poisonous miasma on the island. Zhang Yi's move made everyone tremble with fear. The top leaders of the 6 districts had not expected that Zhang Yi would have such a plan. Even the powerful and unshakable Gatekeeper of the underworld fell into his trap. Any intelligent creature will inevitably have weaknesses. Zhang Yi accurately calculated that the Gatekeeper of the underworld would be affected by the corpses of his or her children. In fact, Zhang Yi's plan was just to detonate the god of death of love at close range to intimidate Zheng Lu. Unexpectedly, the other party accepted the offer and held the huge god of death of love in his arms, thus achieving miraculous results. This guy is still the same as before, only caring about the results and not the process. Li Changgong looked at this scene and couldn't help but sigh. The justice of the result is the ultimate justice. In order to achieve his goal, he doesn't mind the method. Even though it may seem extremely despicable to others, his method is indeed effective. How much damage can this cause to the Gatekeeper of the underworld? Xiao Lai clenched his fists excitedly. They all immediately thought that if the Gatekeeper of the underworld was seriously injured, they could now organize a large army and take the opportunity to launch an attack on the Wulwan Empire. However, shortly after the terrifying shock wave dissipated, a burly figure suddenly rushed out from the clouds. The Gatekeeper of the underworld was not killed. At this level, he would be able to sense the crisis the moment the god of death of love exploded, and then he would try his best to escape and take a defensive stance. In addition, it was indeed impossible to stuff too much of the death god of love into the fake corpse's stomach, so Zhang Yi didn't expect to kill it with one blow. If you want to directly kill the Gatekeeper of the underworld, you need a bomb with an equivalent of at least the Tsar bomb level to have a chance. But Zheng Lu did not look unharmed. His tough black armor was damaged in many places, and there were even scars on his body that were visible to the naked eye. Being hurt by such a weak human, the Gatekeeper of the underworld was now extremely angry. The most important thing is that the other party dared to use his dead son to fool him. Your crime is unforgivable. Human, I will definitely kill you, and I will also use the most brutal methods to kill everyone you care about. The gatekeeper of the underworld roared at Zhang Yi in the distance, and his figure flashed in the air.
Boom.
The extremely fast speed caused a sonic boom, and the figure rushed towards Zhang Yi like lightning. Zhang Yi never let his guard down. Every time he took a step forward, Zhang Yi took 3 steps back. Zhang Yi today is no longer the black chariot-level kid he used to be. It is no longer possible for the gatekeeper of the underworld to easily control him. With me, we'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.